Right to go? Hey everyone, welcome back to another 31-minute podcast. Here I am with Peter Bliss and Bryce and Broccoli.
Hello.
So Peter, thanks for coming today, by the way.
Pleasure.
It's a bit of a I didn't think Bryce would be able to get you that easily, but he has. Thank you.
Pleasure. It's a lovely drive.
Yeah, it is. We should have gone down and seen him.
Well, he doesn't mind coming up. Come hang out with us, right?
Look, come to Terrigal. It's a beautiful part of the
Exactly.
world, and I'm happy to get out of Sydney anytime I can.
Very good. Well, we're thankful that you're here. So a bit of background. I know it, but some of it. But do you want to give us a bit of background on you?
Gee, okay. I was born at a very early age.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a country boy originally, so that's why I like coming up to the country. I left the country to go to Sydney when I left school, to go to Macquarie University.
Yep.
And my background's maths and science and psychology at university. And then I went straight into the corporate world then, and I worked in the corporate world for probably 25 years, a long time. Just started in sales at the bottom in a cigarette company, would you believe?
Really?
Rothmans.
What one?
Rothmans.
Rothmans, yeah. I
And,
just saw the Benson and Hedges site at Pagewood's all developed now, or being developed into Meriton. Yeah.
Well, they merged with Rothmans in
Yep.
2000. So Rothmans and Wills, it was.
Wills, that's it.
British American Tobacco. And Philip Morris. There were three companies in those days. This is back in the 80s.
Yep.
I started with Rothmans and started at the bottom and worked my way, up pretty. I think I had 13 jobs in 11 years. So I was the marketing manager for Winfield when just before I left Rothmans. So I was pretty senior and had good marketing budgets and. But yeah, look, finally left there and went to alcohol company. So, cigarettes to alcohol was my background, and then I ran a company for 6 years. So, and then 15 years ago, I started my own business, which is Business is Bliss.
Business is Bliss.
That's my current company, and I'm a coach. I'm a speaker.
I was going to say, what do you do?
I'm a keynote speaker. I'm a business coach, a life coach, and I'm an expert in mindfulness and mental health and well-being, basically. So that's what I do. And I run workshops and speak about mental health and about the brain and about stress management. And
mental health. You might need to listen to this, Broccoli. do you fix broken teenagers? Absolutely.
I've done work with kids, with 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and help them. So yes, I have one-on-one clients. A lot of clients who, basically the ones who come to me currently are people who are probably having some issues with either stress or depression or anxiety or even suicide tendencies.
What makes depression, you reckon?
Do you want the official view or do you want my view?
Your view.
Yeah.
I don't want the official view.
Yeah.
I want your view.
Depression is a comparison of your current reality to some fantasy that you're addicted to. That's in a nutshell. Yeah.
Like a comparison.
You're comparing your current life and where you're at with your current life to probably usually someone else who you're sort of fantasizing or infatuated with.
Yeah. And
you're sort of saying, well, gee, they're there and I'm here, and that's either a fantasy or you haven't got a clear strategy of how to get there. So maybe it's not a fantasy, maybe it's possible, but you haven't got any vision or any strategies or goals to get there.
Yeah.
It's always a comparison. Where I expect to be in my life versus where I should be or someone else is.
Yeah. Yeah. And they live in that state, and then their focus or energy or vibration just is always, I don't know, low, is it? Well, is that what sort of depression is?
Well, they're not. They're probably not doing what they want to do. They're not doing what they love, or they're not loving what they do. That's another reason. And they're creating the chemical imbalance in their brain, which is probably real, but we're creating that through our own perceptions of what's going on in our life.
Yeah. On that note, if someone's doing something they don't love, but they're scared to leave, or or it's reckless to leave,
which is what I did.
Yeah. So
many times.
What do they do? So they've just listened to Peter Bliss. They go, do what you love, blah blah. Yeah, but I've got 4 kids, a mortgage, and cars, and a wife that's high maintenance.
This is my background.
Yeah. I'm just projecting
Did you tell him about me, did you?
I'm just fortune telling Broccoli's future. Yeah. No, Bella's not high maintenance. Yeah. But so
Look,
What do you do? How do you work your way through that or out of it?
yeah.
How do you find your bliss?
Well, you learn to love what you do, so you can change your perception about what you are doing,
Okay.
even if you're not enjoying it or not liking it, even though it's not what you want to do.
So find peace where you are.
Yeah. So learn to just accept where you are and learn to see how that's helping you get where you want to go.
Okay.
Okay. I'd do your values first. I'd work on your values first and work out what it is you really want to be doing, and then change your perception about what you're currently doing, and say and change it from I hate this job or I'm stuck or all those things you said to this is helping me get to where I want to be, and then sort of part time or on the at nights and weekends work on what you want to do.
Yeah. So almost use it as see it as fuel.
Yeah.
To fuel your life to create other opportunity or the opportunity you want.
Change your mindset from why is this happening to me to how is this serving me.
Okay.
It's that simple.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's your values?
My highest value is my health and well-being right now.
Yeah,
because
okay.
I'm sort of at the age where I'm supposed to be indoors almost, with COVID.
We're all supposed to be, according to the government.
So my health and well-being, my speaking, my teaching, which is my work, and probably family number 3.
Yep.
But probably back when I was started out, probably my family was number 3. Number 1, and that's why I was sort of quite. I wasn't comfortable, but I was doing stuff that I wasn't really wanting to do.
Yeah.
I hated myself when I was in the corporate world, both in a cigarette company and then an alcohol company, because I'm like, what am I doing? And imagine, I always had this sort of intuition, this feeling in the back of my head, imagine if I could work for a company that I really enjoyed as opposed to cigarettes and booze.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but I was doing it. Now I look back at it. At the time I hated it, but I look back now with wisdom and I can say, well, at the time I was, my priority was my family. So that was my highest value. So I was going through pain and pleasure for them.
Right.
I had 4 kids under 7. I had a wife who, wasn't working because she had 4 kids under 7.
Mm.
So I was the main provider. So yeah, I was providing for my family. So they were my highest priority.
So did you enjoy work or not? Not
Oh,
really?
look,
like, was there? How did at the time you didn't know? Now you can look back and say, yeah, it provided for my life and people around me. But did you have a misalignment at work? Were you?
Not initially. I was getting promoted every year, and I was getting good money and a new car every year, and lots of cigarettes every month, and free booze and all that sort of stuff. And look, it was a glamorous job back in those days. We sponsored everything. We sponsored the Winfield State of Origin, the Winfield Cup, the horse racing, the motor racing. So look, it was a glamorous type job. But after probably the last 3 or 4 years, I hated it because I'd given up smoking.
Mm.
So it wasn't aligned to to my morals and ethics, basically.
So if your values change along the way,
Which they do.
yeah, mine have, sort of, and mine have.
Yeah.
How do you make the world change with them? I know you just said find acceptance where you are, but because quite often people get sick and then all of a sudden health is number one.
Yeah.
And how do they make it they can't, if they're in a job and they just can't go and, if they commute, they have no time.
Yeah.
It's
well, if you're getting sick, that's probably an indication that you're not doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because that to me is feedback that you're not, in an authentic role.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, any sort of sickness or disease is just feedback to tell you that you're not in the right role.
Yeah, we interviewed a terminally ill cancer guy yesterday, Michael, really nice guy, and he said he thinks cancer he got it because of stress.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And I think you're right.
I've had 2 near-death experiences myself. One at age 33 when I was at the cigarette company. So looking back now, that was a wake-up call, but I missed it because I was only 33 and I was young.
What did you do?
Well, I just had all the symptoms of a heart attack while I was driving to work.
Yeah, right.
And I drove into the hospital and spent 2 days in the hospital thinking I'd had a heart attack. I'm not sure whether I'd had one or not. And I was diagnosed with a thing called pericarditis, which was a beautiful long label, which made me feel really, oh shit, I've got something long.
Something worthwhile.
Worthwhile, which is a virus of the pericardium, which is the muscle that the heart sits in.
Right.
And at the time, I just believed the doctors and took some drugs and just went back to working too hard, partying too hard, playing too hard, trying to support my family. And then 10 years later, I'd left cigarettes, but I was now in an alcohol company. And I had the same thing happen to me again. Another wake-up call, a bigger one. And this time I honestly thought I was gone. I thought I was 43. I thought I'm having a heart attack. And I actually passed out thinking, this is it.
This is it?
Yeah. And I had pains in the chest.
What did you do then with
arms.
life?
Well, I was about to run a company. This was the weekend before I was starting as a general manager of a company, which I'd never done before. So I was a little bit fearful of that, and it was sort of in that gap between leaving one job and starting a new job as a GM of a company.
Did you
weekend
did you do it, or did you leave, or did you stay, or?
Well, I ended up having a couple of days in. I was up in the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast.
Yeah.
I spent 2 days in John Flynn Hospital up there, having angiogram, having all the tests done, and I was fine. They said there's nothing wrong with me. So that was the moment I realised how powerful my mind is, lying in that hospital bed that for those 2 days, because I'd been dabbling with meditation and yoga and some back in those days some pretty weird shit for an Aussie bloke. This was stuff that men didn't do.
Did you feel stressed before you had this thing?
Totally.
Or did you feel like?
Yeah, anxious, stressed, nervous, but I kept everything in.
Yeah.
That was the Bliss trait. My father had died of a heart attack at 57, so I had his trait of just keeping everything in, bottling it in.
I think most men do, don't they?
It's a male thing, but even
Apart
more
from
so.
Bryce, he cries all the time.
Yeah. But even
Peter told me. We enjoy that now.
Even more so those days, though. Like back in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't.
No.
And when I started doing, practicing what I teach now, it wasn't sort of cool for guys to do the sort of stuff that I teach now. I used to be the only guy at a yoga class way back then, or I used to be a closet meditator back in those days, but after that second near-death experience, which really scared the crap out of me, I just changed my whole lifestyle. Then that's over 20 years ago. That's last century. I just did it regularly every day. I practiced what I now teach and preach, which is mindfulness.
Fear.
Yeah, I know fear.
So, how do you manage fear?
Do you know what fear is?
Fear of the unseen or something, whatever, something appearing real or whatever.
Yeah, I think most people have a misconception of fear.
Yeah. Well, tell me. So even I'm going to relate it to myself.
Yeah. Okay.
So even all these years, I've been speaking for 15 plus years, and still when someone rings me for a job to go speak,
okay,
I instantly go and usually say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not just, I'm sure people are listening to this and they want to do other things, but they're scared to do it.
Yeah.
And I usually confront things and go, but what the hell, how do you manage fear?
Well, fear is to me is your friend. It's again feedback.
Yeah, love him.
It's feedback.
Right.
To tell you that you got an imbalanced perception, in my view.
Okay.
That's simple as that. Fear is the assumption that in the future
something's going to go wrong.
There's going to be more pain than pleasure, more drawbacks than benefits, more negatives than positives.
Yeah, wow. You're right, because every time I've gone and spoke, it's always been great, and more stuff's come, more good stuff. So
there's both. If you think about it, what you're fearing usually doesn't happen. What you worry about doesn't happen. But the way I look at life is that there's always two sides. There's always positive and negatives to everything. If you look, there's always pain and pleasure. If you really, if you want to get anywhere, you got to, you're going to have some pain, even if you're doing what you love. You're going to work hard. You're going to give up stuff to do and get what you want to do. So there's always pain and pleasure with everything. So assuming that if I do this, there's going to be all pleasure or all positive or all benefits, that's the delusion.
Right.
That's the delusion of the masses,
right.
in fact. And that goes back to the brain and how the brain was,
which we have a picture of,
formed.
But we're not going to do it in a minute. Can I ask you a few more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So with relationships, It's the area of my life that is like, if there's a train wreck, it's that. It's like, been married twice, 6 kids, blah, 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 running around doing my thing.
Okay.
And I just can't seem to get that part of my life right.
Okay.
What do you say? You seem to know everything else.
So you practice
fix that one.
Right anyway.
Yeah, like what is it? Is it me or the people?
I'd say it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, how do you actually fix it? It's like when I get into a relationship.
Well, there's nothing to fix. I would say there's nothing to fix. I don't think there's anything to fix with anybody really.
So I just stay a bit like in relationships.
Well, you might have some imbalanced perceptions about relationships. You might have some unrealistic expectations about relationships, possibly. So that's just
probably.
And relationships might not be high a priority on your values. Are they important?
They're not actually on there.
Okay, so who's to judge?
Okay, so how do you make it a priority?
Well, you first got to work out what your hierarchy of priorities are.
Yeah. Well, how do you meet the right person? How do you know it's the right person?
How do you know it's the right person?
Yeah, how do you know? Like, how do you go,
it's a great question.
This is the one. Because like...
Well, when you first meet them, I don't think you might, some people say it's love at first sight.
Right.
And I believe in that, and that's okay for some people. Most people, I don't think that's the case. But look, I think you've just got to trust yourself first and really learn to... It sounds a bit cliche, but learn to love yourself first. And if you do that and you really want a partner, then I think you'll attract a partner into your life.
The right person then.
And if partnership and a committed partnership is important to you. If it's not, then don't expect to have a committed relationship. But individuals aren't committed, I believe, to other people. They're committed to what's important to them.
Right.
So if you can work out what your priorities are first, then if having a committed partner is that important to you, then if you get clear on what you want and you're doing what you want, then I think you'll attract someone. I think it's as simple as that.
Is it as simple as that? Gee, spent my whole life trying to work it out. As simple as that. Bang.
Well, look, I'm in my second marriage, so look, I wouldn't say I'm an expert either. But
are you happy?
Happy's
in
not
your
the
marriage?
objective.
Like, do you like? I just find it like
I'm fulfilled. I'm content. I think there are better words than happy.
Yeah, right.
Happy's an emotion, and that's not something I'm looking for.
Right.
Because that's an imbalanced perception.
Is it?
So there's happy, there's sad. That's a bipolar emotion.
Well, that's probably me.
Okay, so if you're looking for happiness, and a lot of people who do what I do and teach what I teach, they're trying to find. Well, they teach you've got to be happy and you've got to be positive. I don't subscribe to that at all.
What do you subscribe to? Contentment
be real. Contentment, fulfillment
real.
is more attainable. Happy's sort of you'll be happy sometimes, but you're going to be sad sometimes because that's an emotion. Yeah. You're going to be positive sometimes. You're going to be negative sometimes because that's also an emotion. So trying to be positive all the time is delusional, I believe, because the brain wasn't even designed that way. We get about 70,000 thoughts a day, 72,000 thoughts a day, which is about divide by 24, divide by 60, divide by 60 is about one every second on average.
Did you just do that then, or you already knew the answer?
Well, I'm just going...
You already knew it.
I'm just going...
I was like lost
70,
after the second one.
72,000 a day, that's a 24-hour day period, divide by 24, divide by 60, divide by 60.
I'm still on my 9 times
maths
table.
Is my background.
Yeah.
Isn't it 84,000 seconds?
So you get one thought every second, but by design, 75% of those 72,000 a day were designed to be negative. Back when we were in our hindbrain, back when we were reptiles, reptilian brain I'm talking about, which is sort of the base of the skull there, because that's the survival brain. So when we were animals or living in caves, we had to have 75% negative thoughts to stay alive, to not become extinct, to survive, to be on the lookout for danger, and so we've evolved since then. But we still go back to that brain when we're really stressed.
For sure.
So we're gonna have negative.
Is that the
thoughts
fight or
every
flight
day.
one? No.
It and the limbic brain, which is the next evolution, which is the sort of the emotional brain. Yeah, the amygdala, which is the fight-flight part of the brain, is attached to both those older parts of the brain.
What happens when you get really sweaty hands?
Yeah.
I don't. I used to when I was younger. But and people say, oh, it's just you're in the fight or flight, whatever, all the time. What's going on there?
Well, that's your stress response. So,
is it?
Yeah.
So if you're walking around like that all the time, how do you fix it?
Well, again, you don't fix it. It's about recognising where you are, and again, that's how the brain was designed to work. So when you're in your amygdala, that's the brain working.
Right.
So that again means you've got some imbalanced perceptions.
Is that all it is?
That's all I'd say. You've got there's something in your sensory data coming in that the amygdala is scanning for danger.
So if someone's
every
anxious
day.
all the time, a lot, they're doing that.
Yeah, they're probably anxiety's an association from something that's happened in the past that they still haven't balanced.
Right.
Anxiety's it's a projection in the future for something that's happened in the past that's an imbalanced perception, again, in my view.
Yeah.
So it's some event usually that's happened that they've got a charge over, an emotional charge over.
See, I'd have a lot of them. Yeah.
So the sweaty hand, that's your physiology giving you feedback.
Yeah.
That you won't have a balanced physiology, i.e. sweaty hands, if you haven't got a balanced mind.
Right.
In my view. So the mind's the key.
So by you teaching mindfulness,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
To me, it's the science of paying attention.
Yeah.
It's paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment without judgment. That's my second simplest definition.
So I spend a lot of time with Bryce.
Yeah.
And he spends a lot of time with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he always often talks about not judging anyone.
Which is bloody hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah. So that's the key. That's the basic state that we've come from. Primitively. That's back to the hindbrain again. There's two forms of judgment. Everything goes back to two forms of judgment. You understand predator and prey, like in the animal world.
Yeah.
That's what we used to be, right?
You're a predator, aren't you?
Yeah, predator and prey. So the two basic fears go back to that.
Right.
And the two basic forms of judgment go back to that. Okay, so if every predator has a prey and every prey has a predator in the animal kingdom. Okay, so let's just take one animal. The biggest fear you've got is your predator attacking you and having his claws around your neck. That's the greatest fear. Okay, the second greatest fear is I don't have enough food to eat myself. That's where every fear comes from, those two basic fears. So if you think of those two fears at their base level, which one's more anxious? Which one's more fearful is the predator, right? Because you can go without food for a couple of days, and you'll hopefully find something. But if you got the predator around your neck, shit, I'm going to die. You're dead. Yeah. Okay, so we're always trying to avoid the pain of the predator. This is the animal brain. Okay?
Yeah.
It's basically instinct, which is avoid pain of the predator attacking me and killing me, or seek pleasure, which is find my prey that I can eat. So they're the two most basic judgments. So we resent the predator and we're infatuated with the prey.
So if someone cuts you off on the road,
Yeah.
and instead of getting out and dragging them out of the car, you just cruise along and say,
Well, if you did that, if that's what you do, you're in your animal brain. You're in
Right.
You just want to avoid the pain and you want to seek pleasure. So he's scared you or he's annoyed you, but it depends where you are when that happens. If you're in your most advanced part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex here, you're more likely to have that's where you have reason.
okay.
If
So when you you go to the back of your brain, do you?
Yeah, when you're under it's all perception.
Yeah.
So when you're under the perception of real stress, you'll go back to your primitive brain, and you'll react. You'll survive. You'll try and survive. You'll want to avoid the pain or seek the pleasure. You might get pleasure by punching his lights out, or her lights out. That might give you pleasure.
Yeah.
You might
Momentarily.
Yeah. So you'll make probably more rash decisions, and you won't make wise decisions because you'll make them with instinct and impulse, not with reason.
Is that why a lot of people end up in prison?
A lot of men. That's why men. Yeah, that's why men probably have more baggage than women, because we don't share our feelings and we don't understand them, and the prisons are full of men. Road rages are all men. Domestic violence is mainly men. Yeah, that's exactly why. Because we don't often talk about this stuff. We don't understand. I certainly didn't understand it when I was growing up. I had no idea. I've got 3 sons now, who are, my youngest is 24 and my eldest is 31. That's the sons, but they're a lot more evolved than I ever was back when I was their age.
Because you're their dad.
Well, I don't. It's just we're all evolving. I think just the whole planet is evolving, and all humans are evolving.
Slowly.
Yeah, slowly.
So before we get you to explain the brain, which we'd really like you to, if someone's listening to this and they're in a real slump in life, like they're just in a slump, what do they do? Where do they start? They're just like a bit disconnected, a bit like broccoli. But, it's like no, but that feeling, you just don't want to get out of bed. How do they get going? It's easy to say, go do this, go do that, find something you love. But when you just feel like nothing, what do they do? Yeah,
and can I just say this? I feel like that sometimes. So I'm no perfect human being. I'm a human being. I'm a father. I've got 1 son in London at the moment in lockdown. I've got 2 daughters. You know what I mean? So look, I've got 5 kids, not as many as you. So we're all going to have slumps.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends how long the slump is for. But I guess my first message is it's okay to not be okay.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty important. In fact, I wrote an article 2 months ago at the beginning of this COVID crisis, because when it first happened, every politician, every medical expert, every celebrity, every influencer was saying, stay calm. And I got pissed off with that, to be honest, because, and my article was called Don't Expect to Stay Calm. Expect to feel depressed some days. Expect to feel stressed. Expect to have some panic. Expect to have some, some shit happening. And mindfulness, true mindfulness is really acknowledging that and feeling that and being aware of that, not trying to avoid it. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
So that's the first
thing. So it's okay to be like that.
It's okay to be like that. And it's if you allow that to happen, true mindfulness is just is experiencing that and just sort of feeling that and not trying to get rid of it even. Stop trying to get rid of half yourself. Because that's part of us. So own that. That's the first piece of advice. Own the slump. You're going to have slumps sometimes. If it's prolonged, like if it's depression, if you're feeling depressed for a long time, then I think you need some help.
Yeah.
And you might need to go. You might go to a doctor. They might refer you to a psychologist. And but there's the old model, and there's a lot of good psychologists out there, and a lot of good doctors. But there's also a new way of thinking, which is sort of what I'm talking about, which is based on my own studies and research, but also based on what I've learned from a guy called John DeMartini, who's a mentor of mine, and I'm trained in his techniques, and I think his way of looking at things is a lot more powerful than any other psychology that I've come across.
Is that what you're going to explain to us today?
Look, I can definitely vouch for that. I've done probably 20 psychology sessions in all sorts of different things, and I've done like 3 or 4 or 5. Maybe the first one I did with you guys I got more benefit from that one session I did with 20 psychologists over the years. So it works. Yeah. So and it sounds like I've had slumps. We've all gone through them too. The other part too is what sort of lifestyle choices are you making? Sometimes things can go out of whack for no reason at all, but other times if you have a good hard look at yourself, okay. Are you drinking? Are you are you doing things you're supposed to be doing? Are you seeking distraction? Are you watching TV? Are you all these things that might lead to you actually not being fulfilled on a deeper level? Are you sleeping too long? Like all these little things, little symptoms. And then what I found as well is what you're touching on before too. When you're doing things, and I own and run a company, if I'm doing things in that company that I shouldn't be doing that don't inspire me, after a period of time, I'll start seeking distraction. Like you'll look to go to drink or do these things that to really take you off track. You're not looking after your health. So progressively over time, you're getting tired. You drink too much caffeine. You might drink beer. You do all these things that add up to this lifestyle choice that leads you to a funk. And then if I get out of that sort of roles in the company and go back to actually what I'm supposed to be doing, which is talking with the guys, running the company, building relationships, I'm not drawn to that activity at all. So for me, it's being in that, like John talks about, yourself talk about, in that inspired state every day. Because when you're in that inspired state and doing what you're really supposed to be doing, you're not seeking distraction. You're not looking to go play video games or looking for these other cruxes and these sorts of things. You're getting a lot of energy from what you do.
Because you like the state that you're in.
Yeah, and as opposed to the other one where you're driving home from a long week at work. You've had, you're typically hungry. You've had a long day. It's been a long week. You've drunk too much caffeine. A couple of beers would sort it out. And you start with a couple and in before you know it. You've drunk all weekend, you haven't slept properly, you're back at work Monday, you're tired, you're off your game, you really don't want to get up, like all these things feed into it. And because you're out there grinding and doing things that, you're building this, like you said, faulty perception around your activity, whereas you're not seeing it on the way to what it is that you want to achieve, it's sort of in the way. And it's not, yes, you're invested in what you're doing because you have to do it, but you might not necessarily love it. It's taxing your energy system, so you're looking for a way out. And that's how I found it. I related to it. And then when I moved into areas in the company where I just eliminate the things that drain me and focus on the areas that I'm inspired by, I'm not interested in, I don't seek any of that activity. It's not something I work towards. And then I don't end up in those funks, in those slumps, where it's a real bog to get out of. Like it's real hard to sort of pull yourself back.
Get your energy moving.
Yeah, and then what typically suffers when you're in that sort of environment, the first thing goes out the window is your training. The very thing that would reset your physiology and have you clear your mind and the things that would actually get you out of it are the last things you feel like doing. So, and this is the tying it all back together is that, you definitely can get out of that funk, but also as well, it's like you said, it's the way you look at, the perception of way you look at what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And linking, is what Peter was talking about before, is linking what you do to what you love. So, you might not love doing, we put pipe in, do I love that? Well, I can do it, but do I love it? And if I do that for extended periods of time, it wears me down, you know what I mean? And then you default to emotional decisions and emotional behaviours, which are typically, seeking stimulation or escapism or whatever, so.
So, are you going to explain the brain to us?
I can if you want me to. Yeah.
I'd like you to.
Do you want me to show you a picture? But this one's
we're
got writing all over it.
We're going to film it over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah? Yeah, okay. So if you could do that.
That's pretty important because it's so simple to understand. And like Bryce said, we're going to be going into the different parts of the brain each day. You can't be empowered and enlightened and happy, if you want to call it happy, and all day, every day. I don't believe you're going to have moments of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So where do people find you if they want a life coach or if they want to hear your programs or where do they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Peter Bliss. I'm on LinkedIn, Peter Bliss. I've got a website, businessisbliss.com.au. I've got some programs on there for sale. I've got lots of free videos on there.
Awesome.
On my website, basically.
We'll put that on the link
Business is Bliss.
somewhere for him.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.